Talking all things theatre and events.
Been part of some amazing shows and worked with some amazing people.
Nothing that replaces that feeling of being in a gig.
We very quickly learned about the new technologies, digital technologies we've got.
The Stage Is Yours podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Stage Is Yours podcast. With me, your host Cal Graham, joined as always by producer Dan, and we're talking all things theatre and events. Joining us today is Peter Glanville, Artistic Director of Polka Theatre, one of the UK's leading producers of early years and children's theatre. We get into how Polka have adapted to keep producing theatre during lockdown, their Christmas show and creating inclusive theatre. Peter Glanville, the stage is yours. And welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, Peter?
Yeah, I'm very well this morning, thank you.
Grand. Peter is from Polka Theatre, one of the top children's theatres in London, specialising in children's theatre. So if you could just give us a little bit of a background really at Polka Theatre, I think it's something that if you don't have a child, you might not have really heard of.
Yeah, sure. Polka Theatre was established just over 40 years ago. And it's a beautiful building which is in Wimbledon, and it's a kind of wonderland really for children and families. I think the initial idea was that there should be a theatre in London that really has all of the kind of qualities that you'd expect that adults would expect from a theatre, but that should be there for children as well. So there's a main house theatre, 300 seat kind of end-on theatre with beautiful backstage dressing rooms and all the facilities that you'd expect from theatre. We've got an adventure theatre, which is a studio theatre where we put on most of our work for younger children. Under 6, but also where it's really a space where people can kind of drop in and play as well. So there's a playground, there's a cafe that's had a kind of train carriage running through it. There's a garden that you can kind of go outside and enjoy as well. So really a big building that's lots of fun for children to come and enjoy, be creative, do workshops, see productions, but with a level of care and respect that is there for theatre, in the same way that any professional theatre would operate.
That's great. I think it is really nice to have that all under kind of one roof as well, which is really nice because you guys offer everything from after school clubs right the way through to you produce your own shows as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We're predominantly a producing house, so there's about sort of 6 or 7 new productions a year, and those range from productions that might be kind of adaptations of books by Morpurgo or Philip Pullman for kind of 8 to 12s, or they may be new pieces of work that have been created for 2 to 4s, or even productions for babies that we create as well. So a whole range of productions and workshops and creative activities for specifically for different age ranges.
That's amazing. So have you found that obviously we're all in slightly weird times right now? Certainly, have you managed to kind of adapt and kind of still manage to try and keep something kind of coming out for your audiences?
Yeah, it's been kind of really challenging. I mean, for Polka, we were already temporarily shut because we're going through a big kind of £8 million capital redevelopment at the moment. So we'd already been closed for a year and kind of moved down to a smaller team, and we'd been kind of operating from New Wimbledon Theatre throughout what was actually our 40th anniversary. So we had a lot of activities related to that. So it's been kind of challenging in a different way because we've not had the challenges that lots of theatres have had of just how to continue having any kind of activity in the building, which has been really, really hard. But we have been able to respond in terms of the participative work we do. So like many places, we very quickly learned about the new technologies, digital technologies we've got, and our our aim was really to support children and families at this time as much as we could. You know, our mission is to help children navigate their way in the world, and we recognise that, you know, there's huge kind of needs at this time. So we've got a literacy support program called Right Here, Right Now that we run with 5 schools. We immediately managed to make all of that work kind of online for those children. We've got a group called Free Falling, and we work with children who are facing challenging circumstances either at home or at school. And with the Free Falling group, we again managed to kind of work all that with weekly Zoom groups. Over the summer, when things got slightly better, we were able to work in a school and bring in a filmmaker and make a film with them. So that was great that we were actually able to work in a kind of socially distanced way. And then we set up Polka Online, which was our kind of a kind of free offer of activities to children and families. We had storytelling for children. We had live workshops. We had meet the kind of playmakers, sort of introduction to kind of creative artists. And that was kind of interesting because we were kind of reaching our local community, our local audiences, but also getting emails from families in lockdown in Italy saying, "Oh, this is fantastic!" You know, so that was a kind of, you know, it was really interesting. That actually, you know, one of the things that's positive about this is that we're reaching new audiences, and actually the audiences that we have been reaching have been international as well.
That's amazing. So you think it's something that actually you can carry on beyond this and kind of expand what you offer and further outreach than just your immediate community?
I think so. We're looking at that at the moment, and I think very quickly we've gone from Polka Online being a separate thing to kind of working in a way which is much more blended, and that kind of almost sort of, you know, the new normal of expecting digital content is there. So it's just part of our identity at the moment, the kind of digital offer. But absolutely, I think we're learning a lot, and I think we're also, you know, recognizing that kind of commissioning, creating new digital work that's kind of innovative or interesting and isn't just a case of filming a show is a kind of way forward as well. And audiences are really kind of wanting those kind of experiments online, rather than just expecting you to stream a show, which is also great. I mean, you know, it's I'm not against that, but it's interesting to kind of think, well, what could we do, and how might we use this medium? You know,
Tried to keep that, or I think having chatted to lots of people, trying to keep that audience interaction between it all, as much as, like you said, streaming a show is great for, especially for early years theatre and a younger audience. That interaction, I feel, is even more important, or is a key part of what you offer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we've been doing, we did over the summer a thing called Passport to Polka, which is sort of live workshops that people could sign up to. I think we charged £5 for them, and any number of, you know, people in a family could sort of take part. But actually, we had a whole list in advance of all the objects that you're going to use in the workshop, and I've got 3 daughters under 8, and they actually, that was one of the exciting bits, spending half an hour beforehand running around going, oh, I need a hat, I need a bag, I need a cloth, I need an object that I can stir with, I need to find a flower from the garden, you know, and then using all of those and being kind of completely active. I think that's the thing, actually. It's you know, we're about really stimulating children's creativity. So that kind of interactive workshop and that styles has worked really well. And actually, schools haven't been able to continue with the after school clubs that we normally run in schools, because they kind of cross lots of bubbles, and you know that was too difficult. But we've been able to put some of those workshops online as well, and again, you know, people are really engaging with them. But I think what we've learned is that the more interactive they can be, the better they seem to run, you know.
That's great, and that kind of brings us nicely onto how you have now adapted your Christmas show and your Christmas offering. I think a lot of theatres, obviously, unfortunately, haven't been able to, depending now on which tier you've ended up in, depends on obviously whether you can offer or what you can offer, which is a shame for some theatres, and others obviously are doing that. But your complete adaptation has gone obviously with your redevelopment and everything that's going on?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's a director called Ian Nicholson, who I think I first met him about 3 years ago. He's working at the kind of Nuffield Theatre, and I'd kind of thought, oh, he seemed a really interesting artist, and then I saw him perform a kind of toy theatre version of "I Want My Hat Back" by John Classon, which is a children's picture book which had been kind of commissioned by Little Angel Theatre, and it went viral. It was so well done, and it was really a kind of him as a kind of a puppeteer narrator figure inside a kind of miniature toy theatre, kind of proscenium type theatre, telling the story. And I saw that, and then I saw that he had been commissioned by the English National Opera to do another piece as well, and that was really brilliant with live music. And I thought, well, I wonder whether he'd be interested in a polka commission. The idea that I had was to take a Christmas Carol, and maybe just a kind of 15-minute version. I mean, the ones that I'd seen him do, that he'd been getting together in a couple of weeks with this brilliant designer called Sam Wilde. Most of them had been about 7 or 8 minutes. So I thought, well, maybe this would be an interesting commission. 15 minutes is enough to develop the characters a little bit more, develop a bit more pathos in the story. So I kind of said, okay, would you be interested in putting a sort of treatment forward and see what the idea is. And the idea they came up with was just brilliant, which was of everything, pretty much everything that's used to create the story being recycled, and to use all the kind of all the stuff of Christmas, all the paraphernalia of Christmas to create everything. So the puppets are literally made out of tinsel and baubles and Christmas wrapping and Christmas paper and all of that kind of stuff. And it's a really interesting aesthetic, and that idea in itself is hopefully going to inspire kids to just kind of use all of that rather than throwing it all in the bin or in the recycling. How do you make a puppet out of wrapping paper and bits of bubble wrap? How do you the ghost of Christmas present is a present with a mouth and moving eyes. So it was really appealing. And yeah, we've hired the Rialto Theatre in Brighton because Ian's based in Lewes. We've got another puppeteer on board that's kind of working with him. Sam Wilde, the designer, is based in Bristol, and he made everything in advance with his assistant, and then literally drove down to Brighton on Monday, dropped everything off, and they're rehearsing it now and getting it ready for a bit of post production, and then something that we'll be able to offer to our audiences. So it's really exciting. And actually, literally just before we started chatting, we had a meet and greet, and normally on the first day of rehearsals, all the staff at Polka, it can be about 40 of us in the theatre, have a meet and greet with the creative artists and the performers, the actors, and that's a chance to kind of talk about the production, meet each other, see the costume design, see the model box, etc. And we thought, do you know what? We're still producing this. We still want them to feel that they're part of the Polka team. So we had a Zoom meet and greet with 20 of us this morning over a cup of coffee, and they sort of showed us stuff that they were doing down in Brighton. So yeah, I mean, technology is amazing, isn't it, in terms of how we can still keep connected creatively.
Absolutely. I think it is finding ways to do what we always do, and just ways that you can still try and keep that going, and in this slightly odd new normal that things are becoming. And it's do that. I think it's testament to you guys to find that, to come up with that idea and kind of adapt what you would normally do and find a way to still make that offering. You've also worked with Vocalize as well to kind of make your show as accessible as possible to everyone. So I wonder if you could give us a little bit more about how you kind of have worked with Vocalize and to adapt your show to make it as accessible for everyone.
So what we're wanting to do with Vocalize is really to bring Christmas Carol to life for blind and visually impaired people through the accompanying audio description. we're working with them, and they're audio describing it, but they're not just audio describing it throughout. They're doing a kind of introductory audio description as well. So the audiences will get a chance to have the set described to them, the setting described to them, characters. So not only a description that takes people through the story, but a description that allows audiences to get a kind of whole feel for the piece throughout. So yeah, we're really Vocalize, fantastic organisation who kind of know what they're doing, kind of inside out. So we're really, it's really pleased to be kind of working with them, and to just kind of ensure that it's enhancing kind of accessibility for audiences, and that's something that we are really committed to in terms of working at Polka. We have we have audio described productions, we have relaxed performances, we have BSL performances and captioning. So we felt that that commitment to ensure that the work we create is there for every child is something that we need to make sure is there. When it's a digital offer as much as a kind of live performance.
Yeah, which is really great. And you touched on it earlier that you're going through your theatre's going through your refurbishment, and that obviously for you guys with all of your outreach and your accessibility programs, that's very much at the heart of your refurb for your new theatre, but your refurbished theatre. Yeah,
it's an amazing building, but yeah, it is now over 40 years old, and as much as we sort of try to make the building and the work as accessible as possible, there were difficulties. Our rehearsal space previously was in a church hall up the road, which was kind of up a narrow cobbled street, not very accessible, not very friendly in that respect. Our offices were upstairs that were kind of slightly disconnected. Our theatre stage wasn't accessible. So these were all things that were absolute priorities for us in terms of the redevelopment. So we're now going to have wheelchair access to the stage, which means we can have performers who are wheelchair users, children who are wheelchair users performing on the stage, which is so crucial in terms of the work that we want to do moving forward, which is going to be a lot more kind of inclusive. The importance of audiences seeing kind of being normalised with the visibility of disabled performers on stage. It's really key. Our wardrobe department used to be right at the top of the building, up 3 flights of stairs. That's now in a corridor that's right next to our new rehearsal space, which is on the same level as our theatre. So the whole building is much more accessible, not only to our audiences, but also to the artists that we work with as well. And that's the lift that we had did give us kind of access to be able to escort wheelchair users to the stage, but that's also bigger than the previous one, and that's a kind of recognition that a lot of people do have larger wheelchairs now as well. So yeah, it's really important, and as I said, our all of our work, we're thinking all the time about how we can make sure that it's for every child. So we need to remove whatever physical barriers might be there to enable that accessibility in the building. And then the other aspect is really about the work that we create and how we can make sure that our work is moving towards being more inclusive. So we've got a number of projects sort of that we're working with on artists that we're working with at the moment who are disabled, and they're kind of that's a kind of key commitment in terms of the work that we want to create in the future. So we've got a brilliant artist called Nikki Charlesworth who has cerebral palsy, and she's developing a puppetry piece which is kind of exploring the barriers that she's faced having cerebral palsies, and so we're supporting the development of that work at the moment through our kind of Polka Lab professional development project. We're partnering with Unlimited. We've got a co-commission for R&D, a £10,000 co-commission that's out at the moment, and we've had lots of interest in that. So we're in the process of shortlisting that, but there will be, one artist that is chosen that we both then support through R&D, and hopefully take that further into kind of production as well. So yeah, and we're also, I can't kind of talk about our big kind of opening project that we're hoping to develop at the moment, but again, that's going to be an inclusive piece as well, and we're kind of exploring at the moment how we can work with potentially with a deaf performer, deaf director on that as well. So yeah, it's all really exciting. It's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that can sometimes be overlooked. Is obviously lots and lots of theatres cater to your audience and make everything inclusive for your audience, but also I think it's actually, when you look into it a little bit further, actually it's being able to offer that to performers and artists as well, to be able to go, well, actually there's no barriers anywhere within a theatre, and element is something that is getting better. But I think, like I said, with the nature of theatre buildings being that little bit older, certainly backstage is where it tends to can be quite difficult to make a building accessible for everyone. But I think it's great that you guys have got that at your heart going forward, to try and to give everyone that opportunity, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I can't remember where the quote came from, but someone sort of said, the difference between sort of accessibility and inclusivity is that, accessibility is being invited to the party, inclusivity is being asked to dance, and I think that's kind of where we're heading, really. It's just about developing exciting partnerships with a whole range of different artists.
Yeah, which is really exciting for you guys, and I think for everyone in the future to see because there are some amazing stories to be told, I think, as well, from that, certainly. And one little thing that I'd like to touch on that I kind of I might be springing on you a little bit, because it certainly wasn't in what I sent out initially, but I found really intriguing and interesting when I was looking a little bit further into Polka, is your Young Voices kind of program. And
yeah, absolutely. It's we kind of, we want children to be at the heart of the organization, and everything we do all the time, we're thinking about children, thinking about children's emotions, perceptions, wanting the work to be authentic and to not fall into being cliched in any way. So one of the ideas that we had some time ago was to set up this kind of Young Voices group, and they are a group of children who range from, I think the youngest is about 6 through to about 12, and we kind of get advice from them, really, and use them in lots of different ways to join us in R&D or rehearsals, and give feedback on to the artists, to the creative team, on the work, what they think of it. We work with them directly in R&D. Sometimes there are the artists that come in and go, actually, I really want to kind of spend a week working with a group of 7-year-olds to make sure that I'm kind of creating a piece of work which feels authentic to them, and a piece of work that is geared to that age range. I'm worried that I might be going too old with some of the content. Will it be something that they really kind of get stimulated by or kind of key into? They interviewed me for my job. They weren't the only ones. The Arts Council and a few other people were there as well. But they were part of the process. So if you get the job, what are you going to do? What shows are you going to do? Are you going to do Harry Potter? Like a range of questions. I'd love that. Would be great, wouldn't it? I wouldn't mind that one. And they advise us on green issues, sustainability. They tell us about books that they're reading, TV that they're watching. So it's a way of us just kind of being able to make sure that there's that continued communication. And that the work's authentic. That it's kind of something that is. I'm a bloke in my 50s. Yes, I've got 3 young kids, but actually it's really important to being a 7-year-old now is very different to being a 7-year-old 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They know what it's like, and they're having particular experiences. So it's really important to us, the Young Voices group, really key.
Yeah, I think it was, like I said, looking into bits and pieces that you guys do and that you offer, it was something that really jumped out at me, that I was like, well, that is really great that you're keeping that work as relevant as possible to make sure that it is obviously interesting to 7-8-year-old, but also that it's still heading in the right direction from that. And I love that story that they were part of your interview as well. I think that's great. So kind of starting to wrap this up a little bit, these are a little bit random and kind of the end of our podcast. We ask all of our guests the same 3 questions at the end, and they're a little bit random, and kind of we just chatted through, myself and Dan, and kind of thought about just 3 random questions kind of to do that. So the first one is, if you had a dream show that you could be involved with, that you wanted to produce, do you have an idea what that would be? Or what would that be for you?
That's an interesting question, isn't it? I mean, I think there's. I love his dark materials. That might be one that would be one that I'd love to do at some point. But I think that would probably be the one I go for. There's a section of in the first Harry Potter book where the owl comes, and I always thought I'd be really interested in creating a production out of. It's literally about 3 pages, So maybe I need to write to JK and see if she'll let me have the rights to 3 pages. See if that happens.
Just 3 pages. That's all I want. 3 pages.
All I want. So much to ask.
There's enough pages in Harry Potter. I'm sure she can spare 3. That's great. Our second one is probably our most random, but some people find it quite difficult to answer. After an event or a show, what's your go-to snack?
Well, I suppose the thing with children's theatre is most of our shows are kind of morning and afternoon. So it's, we don't have the same kind of experience as a kind of first night of an evening show where you're all straight down the pub or off for a curry or whatever. Yeah. But having said that, I will. There's a nice Thai restaurant up the road. So often I'll myself and some of the creative artists will go there, and I'll treat myself to a nice Thai meal, and probably a large glass of Malbec would be my choice for that.
And our final question, and it's kind of to try and end up that we've got. What's the one thing that you know now that you wish someone had told you, or you knew when you were kind of first starting out?
I think that to not be afraid to write to people that you think you can learn from. I mean, I didn't grow up in a theatre world at all. I was from a kind of working class background where nobody I knew was involved in the arts at all, really, and kind of came to London because punk was in London. That was my thing. But I kind of when I got into theatre, I just felt like such a kind of outsider, and I thought, I can't possibly speak to this person or write to this theatre, and I think that was wrong. And I think actually my experience now is that most directors or artistic directors are really open, and really happy to have a chat or have a coffee, or to even kind of mentor people. So my advice would be to not be frightened to ask, for advice, or to have a coffee or chat.
Great. I think that's a really nice note to end on as well. Peter, it's been really great chatting to you about all things polka and what you guys have got going on. We'll obviously put out all of your information where you can find the Christmas Carol as well, should people want to tune into that. It's been really nice.
Brilliant. Thank you, Callum. It's been really enjoyable.
It's been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Stage Is Yours podcast. Want to know more? Then head over to all of our socials. You can find us at Stage Is Yours Pod, where you can catch a cheeky glimpse at some of our upcoming guests, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to make sure that you never miss an episode. This has been the Stage Is Yours podcast, talking all things theatre and events. Until next time.